Marcus Chen stared at the legal documents spread across his kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee growing rings on the mahogany surface. His Aunt Lydia had been the black sheep of the family, disappearing into space 20 years ago to become what his mother called one of those crazy asteroid miners. Now she was dead, and somehow Marcus had inherited her entire estate. The problem was, her entire estate consisted of one beat-up cargo freighter called the Wandering Star and whatever was inside it. "Why me?" Marcus muttered, running his fingers through his dark hair. He worked as an accountant for a small firm in New Tokyo, Earth. His idea of adventure was trying a new restaurant, or maybe taking the maglev train to visit the coast on weekends. Space travel made him queasy just thinking about it. The inheritance lawyer, a thin man with cybernetic eyes, had been very specific about one thing. Marcus had to physically claim the ship within 30 days, or it would be sold for scrap to pay docking fees. The Wandering Star was currently sitting in Bay 47 of Titan Station, somewhere near Saturn. 3 weeks had passed. Marcus had 7 days left. His sister Emma called him every day, practically begging him to just let the ship go. "It's probably full of junk anyway," she said during their video call that morning. "Aunt Lydia was always weird. Remember how she used to talk to her houseplants?" But something nagged at Marcus. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the fact that Aunt Lydia had specifically chosen him in her will. The document mentioned that she believed he had the patience and kindness necessary for the responsibility. What responsibility? Taking care of an old spaceship? On Thursday morning, Marcus made a decision that would change his life forever. He booked passage on a transport ship to Titan Station. The journey took 18 hours. And Marcus spent most of it in his tiny cabin feeling nauseous and questioning his sanity. The transport ship Mercury's Dream was a sleek passenger liner, nothing like the industrial cargo haulers he'd seen in documentaries. Everything was clean, white, and sterile. The other passengers were mostly business travelers and tourists, heading to the outer colonies. Titan Station was massive, a sprawling complex of docking bays, habitation modules, and commercial districts all connected by pressurized tunnels. The artificial gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth's, making Marcus feel like he might float away with each step. The air recyclers gave everything a faint metallic taste. Following the directions on his datapad, Marcus made his way through the station's maze-like corridors. Bay 47 was in the older section, where the lighting was dimmer and the walls showed their age with rust stains and worn paint. The noise here was different too. The constant hum of life support systems, the clang of machinery, and the occasional announcement over crackling speakers. When Marcus finally reached Bay 47, he stopped dead in his tracks. The Wandering Star was not what he had expected. The ship was enormous, at least 3 times larger than the transport that had brought him here. But it looked ancient. The hull was a patchwork of different metals, some areas clearly newer repairs over older damage. Scorch marks and dents told stories of a hard life among the asteroids. The name Wandering Star was painted in faded blue letters near the front, with smaller text underneath that read, "Captain L. Chen, Independent Trader." A docking clamp connected the ship to the station, and Marcus could see lights glowing through several portholes. Someone had left the power on. Marcus approached the main airlock, his heart pounding. The inheritance documents had included access codes, and he punched them into the keypad with trembling fingers. The lock cycled through its sequence with mechanical precision, and the heavy door swung open with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The first thing that hit him was the smell. Not unpleasant, but distinctly alien. It was earthy and warm, with hints of something floral. The second thing was the temperature. Unlike the cold efficiency of Titan Station, the Wandering Star felt lived in and comfortable. Marcus stepped inside, and the lights automatically brightened to welcome him. The corridor was wider than he'd expected, with walls covered in some kind of synthetic wood paneling that gave the space a homey feel. Photographs lined the walls, pictures of Aunt Lydia with various aliens at different space stations, images of beautiful nebulae and asteroid fields, and group shots of crews from different ships. He followed the main corridor toward what his datapad indicated was the bridge. Along the way, he passed what looked like living quarters, a galley kitchen, and several rooms marked as storage. Everything was clean and well-maintained, which surprised him given the ship's external appearance. The bridge was smaller than he'd imagined from movies, but it felt sophisticated. Multiple screens showed various system readouts, all indicating that the ship was in good working order. A comfortable captain's chair sat in the center, with a small coffee cup still sitting on the armrest. Aunt Lydia's coffee cup. Marcus was examining the navigation console when he heard it. A soft chirping sound, almost like a bird, but different. Musical. He froze, listening. The sound came again from somewhere deeper in the ship. Following the noise, Marcus made his way back down the corridor and found a door he hadn't noticed before, partially hidden behind a decorative hanging cloth. The chirping was definitely coming from behind this door. The door wasn't locked. Marcus pushed it open and stepped into what appeared to be Aunt Lydia's personal quarters. The room was cozy with a large bed, a desk covered in journals and star charts, and several plants growing under artificial sunlight. But what caught his attention was the small creature sitting on the bed, looking directly at him with large, luminous purple eyes. It was about the size of a house cat, but clearly not from Earth. Its fur was a soft silver-blue color that seemed to shimmer in the light, and it had 4 legs, a long tail, and ears that were almost too large for its head. The most striking feature, though, were its eyes. Intelligent, curious, and somehow very familiar. The creature chirped again, a sound that somehow conveyed both greeting and question. "Hello there," Marcus said softly, not wanting to frighten it. "Are you the reason nobody wanted this ship?" The creature tilted its head, studying him. Then it stood up, stretched in a very cat-like manner, and began to purr. The sound was deeper than an Earth cat's purr, with harmonic overtones that seemed to resonate in Marcus's chest. On the desk, Marcus spotted an open journal with Aunt Lydia's handwriting. The entry was dated 3 weeks ago, shortly before her death. "Zephyr is getting restless. I think she knows something is wrong with me. The doctors on Ceres Station confirmed what I already suspected. The radiation exposure from that incident near the Veil Nebula finally caught up with me. I have maybe a month left. I've made arrangements for Marcus to inherit the ship. He's the only one in the family who might understand. Zephyr chose me 20 years ago, and now she'll need to choose again. I just hope Marcus has the patience to let her make that choice. The Kithra bond doesn't work with everyone, but if it works with him, he's in for quite an adventure. Note: the cargo hold contains more than just mining equipment. I've been very careful about what jobs I take, and some of the items in storage are significant. Marcus will need to be careful who he trusts." Marcus looked up from the journal to find that the creature, Zephyr, had moved closer. She was now sitting at the edge of the bed, watching him read. "So you're a Kithera," Marcus said. He'd never heard of the species. But then again, there were hundreds of known alien races, and he'd never been particularly interested in xenobiology. Zephyr chirped and hopped down from the bed. She walked over to Marcus and, without any hesitation, rubbed against his legs like a friendly cat. The purring intensified, and Marcus felt a strange sensation, like a warm presence touching the edge of his mind. Trust came a feeling that wasn't quite a word. Kindness. Home. Marcus jerked in surprise. "Did you just—" Zephyr looked up at him with those intelligent purple eyes and chirped again. This time the meaning was clearer. Yes. The telepathic connection was subtle, nothing like the dramatic mind melds he'd seen in movies. It was more like having someone gently tap on the window of his consciousness, present, but not intrusive. "Hungry?" Zephyr communicated, and Marcus couldn't help but smile. "Right. Let me see what Aunt Lydia left for you to eat." The galley kitchen was well stocked with both human food and several sealed containers marked with alien script. One container had a picture of a creature that looked very much like Zephyr, so Marcus opened it carefully. Inside were small, colorful pellets that smelled faintly of fruit and flowers. As Zephyr ate, Marcus explored more of the ship. The cargo hold was enormous, taking up almost half the vessel's interior space. Most of it was filled with standard mining equipment, ore processors, survey drones, and refinement units. But in one corner, secured behind a force field that required Aunt Lydia's personal authorization codes, were a dozen sealed crates. Marcus used the codes from the inheritance documents to deactivate the force field. The first crate he opened contained something that made his breath catch in his throat. Crystals. Not just any crystals. These were singing stones from Altair Prime, worth a fortune as components for faster-than-light communication arrays. The second crate contained artistic sculptures from the Vegan Collective, each piece worth more than Marcus made in a year. The third crate held data cores containing what appeared to be star charts of unexplored regions. By the time Marcus had inventoried all the crates, he realized he was looking at cargo worth millions of credits. No wonder Aunt Lydia had been careful about the jobs she took. This wasn't random mining loot. This was a carefully curated collection of extremely valuable items. His data pad chimed with an incoming message. Marcus checked it and felt his stomach drop. "Attention vessel Wandering Star. This is Station Security Chief Nakamura. We've received reports that your vessel contains contraband materials. Please report to security immediately for inspection." Marcus looked around the cargo hold, then at Zephyr, who had followed him and was now sitting nearby, watching him with those intelligent eyes. "Danger," she communicated. "Bad humans coming." "How do you know they're bad?" Marcus asked. Zephyr's response came as a flood of emotions and images. Men in uniforms who weren't really station security, ships following the wandering star through space, Aunt Lydia hiding and running. Someone had been tracking his aunt, and now they knew Marcus was here. Marcus made a decision that surprised even him. Instead of panicking or running to station security for help, he headed for the bridge. "Can this ship fly?" he asked Zephyr. "Yes. Ship ready." Aunt Lydia prepared. Marcus settled into the captain's chair and began examining the controls. He'd never piloted anything larger than a ground car, but the interface was surprisingly intuitive. Aunt Lydia had left detailed notes taped to various panels, including a quick start sequence. His data pad chimed again. This time it was a priority message. "Mr. Chen, this is your final warning. Report for inspection immediately, or we will board your vessel." "Not really station security, are they?" Marcus muttered. "No. Pirates. Thieves. Want treasure." Marcus's hands moved over the controls, following Aunt Lydia's instructions. The ship's engines hummed to life, and he could feel the wandering star trembling as systems came online. The docking clamps released automatically. Apparently, Aunt Lydia had programmed an emergency departure sequence. Through the bridge viewports, Marcus could see the vast expanse of space opening before them as the ship backed away from Titan Station. An alarm klaxon began sounding from the station, and several small ships launched from other docking bays. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Marcus said, engaging the main engines. The wandering star accelerated away from Titan Station with surprising grace for such an old vessel. Marcus felt pressed back into his seat as the artificial gravity compensated for the ship's movement. "Good choice," Zephyr purred, settling into a small cushioned seat next to the captain's chair that was clearly designed for her. Adventure begins. Behind them, the pursuing ships were falling back. Whatever upgrades Aunt Lydia had made to the wandering star, speed was definitely one of them. Marcus checked the navigation system and found a course already plotted, a route that would take them to Ceres Station, the largest asteroid mining hub in the belt. Aunt Lydia's notes indicated she had friends there, people who could help explain what Marcus had gotten himself into. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Marcus sat back in the captain's chair and tried to process what had just happened. This morning, he had been a simple accountant. Now he was the captain of a starship, on the run from pirates, with a telepathic alien companion and a cargo hold full of treasures. Zephyr chirped softly and sent a feeling of contentment mixed with anticipation. New adventures, new friend, good human. "I hope you're right," Marcus said, watching the stars blur past in the viewports. The wandering star flew on through space, carrying its new captain toward an uncertain but undoubtedly interesting future. In the cargo hold, the sealed crates waited silently, holding secrets that would soon change everything Marcus thought he knew about his quiet, ordinary life. Behind them, on Titan Station, angry men in fake security uniforms made urgent communications to ships waiting in the outer system. The hunt for the wandering star and its precious cargo was far from over. The journey to Ceres Station took 3 days through hyperspace, and Marcus spent most of that time learning how to operate the wandering star with Zephyr as his guide. The little Kythera was surprisingly helpful, seeming to understand the ship's systems almost as well as any human crew member would. "Aunt Lydia taught me," Zephyr explained during one of their conversations. The telepathic bond between them had grown stronger over the past few days, allowing for more complex communication. Ship needs 2 minds working together. Human hands, Kythera senses. Marcus discovered what she meant when they encountered their first navigation challenge. The route to Ceres required passing through a dense asteroid field, and the ship's sensors couldn't penetrate deep enough to plot a safe course. But Zephyr could sense the gravitational flows and electromagnetic signatures of the space rocks, guiding Marcus through paths that no computer could calculate. "This is incredible," Marcus said, as they glided between asteroids the size of buildings. "How do you do it?" "Kythera evolved in asteroid fields," Zephyr explained, her mental voice tinged with pride. "Home planets destroyed long ago. Now we live in space. Help others navigate the dark." That explained why so few people had seen a Kythera. They weren't a planetary species anymore. They lived their entire lives aboard ships, serving as navigators and companions to spacers willing to bond with them. No wonder his aunt had been so protective of Zephyr. During the quiet hours when the ship flew on autopilot, Marcus read through Aunt Lydia's journals. What he discovered painted a picture of a woman who had been much more than just an asteroid miner. "Today I helped evacuate a research station before the hegemony raiders arrived. The scientists were studying gravitational anomalies near the galactic rim, and their findings could revolutionize our understanding of dark matter. The hegemony wanted to weaponize their research, but I managed to get the data cores to safety. Hidden them in cargo container 7. The refugee ship from Tau Ceti finally made it to safety. Captain Rodriguez was grateful for the supplies I smuggled past the blockade. 200 families will have a new home now thanks to the medicine and food we transported. Zephyr says she can still feel their gratitude echoing in hyperspace. Met with the Underground Railroad contact on Vesta Station today. They've got 30 more escaped slaves from the rim worlds who need transport to free space. The risk is getting higher. Hegemony patrols are everywhere now, but Zephyr agrees we can't abandon people who need help. Entry after entry revealed that Aunt Lydia had been part of some kind of resistance network, using her mining ship as a cover to transport refugees, steal valuable research from oppressive governments, and smuggle supplies to colonies under siege. The valuable cargo in the hold wasn't treasure. It was evidence, research data, and resources meant for people who desperately needed them. Marcus was beginning to understand why pirates had been following the ship. Aunt Lydia's activities had made her powerful enemies. On the third day, they dropped out of hyperspace near Ceres Station. The massive asteroid had been completely hollowed out and converted into a sprawling city station. Docking bays covered its surface like metal blisters, and ships of every size and description moved in organized traffic patterns around its bulk. Marcus requested docking clearance using the identification codes Aunt Lydia had provided. To his relief, they were assigned to Bay 12 without question. "Friends here," Zephyr assured him as they made their approach. "Safe place. But stay alert." The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth for someone who had never done it before, though Marcus suspected Zephyr was helping guide his hands through the more complex maneuvers. As soon as the wandering star was secured, Marcus's communication system chimed with an incoming call. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to a middle-aged woman with cybernetic implants covering half her skull and the most piercing green eyes Marcus had ever seen. "So you're Lydia's nephew," she said, without preamble. "I'm Captain Sarah Webb. Lydia asked me to look out for you if anything happened to her. We need to talk." An hour later, Marcus found himself in a crowded bar called the Asteroid's Edge, deep in Ceres Station's commercial district. Captain Webb had insisted on meeting somewhere public, claiming it was safer than talking on the ship. Zephyr rode on Marcus's shoulder, hidden under a hooded cloak that made her look like an unusual pet rather than a sentient being. Captain Webb was even more intimidating in person. She wore a long coat that couldn't quite hide the various weapons strapped to her belt, and she moved with the easy confidence of someone who had been in more than her share of fights. "Lydia never told you about the network, did she?" Webb asked after they'd found a corner table away from the crowd. "What network?" "Figured as much. Lydia was always protective of family." Webb took a long drink from her beer. "The network is what we call ourselves. Independent traders, miners, explorers, pirates, anyone who believes the outer colonies should stay free from hegemony control." Marcus had heard of the hegemony. Of course. Officially, they were the human colonial hegemony, a government that claimed to represent humanity's interests in space. In practice, they were becoming more like an empire, conquering or pressuring independent worlds to join their expanding territory. "The hegemony doesn't like people like your aunt," Webb continued. "She was one of our best couriers. Could get into places other ships couldn't reach, carry sensitive cargo without attracting attention. At least until recently. What changed? Someone leaked information about her activities to hegemony intelligence. They've been tracking her for months, trying to capture her cargo. That stuff you're carrying isn't just valuable. It's dangerous to people in power." Zephyr shifted on Marcus's shoulder, and he felt a wave of concern from her. Danger close. Watchers in crowd. Marcus tried not to look around nervously. "What kind of dangerous?" "Research data from the Kepler colonies before they were pacified. Proof that the hegemony has been using biological weapons against civilian populations. Communication records showing corruption in the colonial senate. Star charts showing secret military bases in neutral space." Webb's expression was grim. "Your aunt spent years collecting evidence of hegemony war crimes. That data could bring down their entire government." Marcus felt overwhelmed. "I'm just an accountant. I don't know anything about politics or war crimes." "Maybe not, but you're Lydia's heir now. That makes you a target." Webb leaned forward. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before Marcus could answer, the lights in the bar suddenly dimmed and red emergency lighting activated. A calm voice spoke over the station's intercom system. "Attention, Ceres Station. We are conducting a routine security inspection. All ships and personnel will remain in their current locations until further notice." The crowd in the bar began murmuring nervously. Through the nearest window, Marcus could see sleek military ships surrounding the asteroid station. "Hegemony Navy," Webb said quietly. "They found you faster than I expected." "Many bad humans coming," Zephyr warned. "Feel their anger in the dark." Webb stood up smoothly, her hand moving to one of her weapons. There's a service tunnel behind the bar that connects to the docking bays. We need to get you back to your ship. What about the inspection? Won't they check all the ships? Kid, that's not a routine inspection. That's a fleet blockade. Webb began moving toward the back of the bar, gesturing for Marcus to follow. They're here for you and that cargo. If they catch you, you'll disappear into a hegemony detention facility and never be seen again. The service tunnel was cramped and poorly lit, but it led directly to the docking bay level. As they hurried through the metal corridor, Webb explained the situation. The network has safe houses throughout the asteroid belt, places where you can lay low until the heat dies down. But first we need to get that evidence to people who can use it. There's a journalist on Europa Station who's been investigating hegemony activities, Elena Vasquez. She's got the connections to make this information public. How do we get there with a fleet of hegemony ships surrounding the station? Webb smiled grimly. That's where having a Kythera comes in handy. Zephyr can guide you through hyperspace routes that don't show up on any charts. The hegemony relies on standard navigation, but a bonded Kythera can find paths through space that conventional sensors can't detect. They reached the docking bay to find it swarming with activity. Hegemony soldiers in full combat armor were moving from ship to ship, conducting inspections with military efficiency. The wandering star was still secure in its berth, but it would only be a matter of time before the soldiers reached it. There, Webb pointed to a maintenance hatch near the ceiling. That leads to the service crawlways that run above the docking bays. You can get to your ship without being seen. What about you? I'm going to create a distraction. Give you time to get away. Webb checked her weapons one more time. Take care of yourself, kid, and take care of Zephyr. Kythera bonds are rarer than you know. Good human, Zephyr communicated as Webb disappeared back into the service tunnel. Brave friend. Marcus climbed up to the maintenance hatch and began crawling through the narrow space above the docking bay. Through the metal grating, he could see hegemony soldiers moving systematically through the ships below. Some crews were being led away in restraints. It took 20 minutes to reach the section above the wandering star. Marcus found an access panel that led directly into the ship's cargo hold, and he dropped down as quietly as possible. The ship seemed exactly as they had left it, but Marcus noticed that someone had placed a small electronic device near the main computer terminal. A tracking beacon. Bad device, Zephyr confirmed. Calls to enemy ships. Marcus carefully removed the beacon and crushed it under his heel. Then he made his way to the bridge and began the startup sequence as quietly as possible. Outside, he could hear the sounds of Webb's distraction beginning. Alarms were ringing, and he could see flashing lights reflecting off the docking bay walls. Whatever she was doing, it was working. The hegemony soldiers were running away from the wandering star toward some other emergency. The ship's engines came online with their familiar hum, and Marcus began the undocking procedure. His hands were steadier now than they had been at Titan Station. 3 days of practice had taught him the basics of ship operation. Ready for jump, Zephyr reported. Feel the safe paths opening. The wandering star backed away from Ceres Station just as the first hegemony patrol ship noticed their movement. Marcus engaged the main engines and accelerated toward open space, weaving between asteroids to avoid weapons fire. This is hegemony cruiser domination. Unknown freighter, halt immediately or we will open fire. Marcus ignored the warning and continued accelerating. The ship's defensive systems activated automatically, projecting energy shields around the hull. Laser fire from the pursuing ships splashed harmlessly against the barriers. Jump point ahead, Zephyr guided him. Special path. Hard to follow. The hyperspace jump felt different this time. Instead of the smooth transition Marcus had experienced before, this felt like diving through layers of reality. Stars streaked past in impossible colors, and space itself seemed to twist around the ship. When they emerged from hyperspace, they were floating in empty space between star systems. No planets, no stations, no other ships. Just the cold beauty of the cosmos. Where are we? Marcus asked. Safe space, Zephyr explained. Old Kithara path. Few humans know these routes. Marcus consulted the navigation charts. According to the ship's computer, they were somewhere between Mars and Jupiter, but in a region marked as unexplored on all the official maps. How do you know about these routes? Kithara memory. Passed down through bonding. Your aunt learned from her Kithara, I learned from your aunt. Now you learn from me. Marcus realized that he was part of something much larger than just inheriting a ship. The bond with Zephyr connected him to a network of knowledge that spanned generations of spacers and their Kithara companions. Over the next several hours, as they made their way toward Europa Station through hidden hyperspace routes, Marcus learned more about the galaxy than any Earth-based education had ever taught him. The Kithara had once been the dominant species in this part of the galaxy, building vast cities on asteroids and developing technology that worked in harmony with the natural forces of space. But a civil war had destroyed their civilization thousands of years ago, leaving only scattered survivors who chose to bond with other species rather than rebuild. Learned from mistakes, Zephyr explained. Power corrupts. Better to help others than to rule. The hegemony represented everything the Kithara had learned to fear, a centralized power structure that sought to control and dominate rather than cooperate and explore. That was why so many Kithara had bonded with independent spacers like Aunt Lydia. They were fighting the same fight their ancestors had lost. When they finally approached Europa Station, Marcus felt like a different person than the accountant who had left Earth a week ago. He was beginning to understand the weight of responsibility that came with the wandering star and its cargo. Europa Station was smaller than Ceres, built into the ice shell of Jupiter's moon. It served primarily as a research facility and neutral meeting point for ships from all over the solar system. Most importantly, it was outside hegemony jurisdiction. As they docked, Marcus received a message on his personal communicator. It was from Elena Vasquez, the journalist Webb had mentioned. Mr. Chen, I've been expecting you. Dock your ship and come to Research Lab 7 immediately. Come alone, but bring your Kithara. We have much to discuss. Trust her, Zephyr advised. Feel truth in her words. Marcus gathered several of the data cores from Aunt Lydia's hidden cargo and made his way into Europa Station. The corridors here were different from the industrial spaces of Ceres. Everything was clean and bright, designed for scientific research rather than mining or trade. Research Lab 7 was located in the station's outer ring, with a large window looking out at Jupiter's swirling clouds. Elena Vasquez was younger than Marcus had expected, maybe 30 years old, with short red hair and intense brown eyes. You have information that could change the course of human expansion, she said without preamble. But publication carries risks. The hegemony has ways of silencing inconvenient truths. My aunt died gathering this information, Marcus said. People are suffering because of what the hegemony is doing. It needs to be exposed. Elena smiled. Spoken like a true member of the network. Very well. Let's see what your aunt discovered. As Marcus handed over the data cores, he felt Zephyr's contentment through their bond. They were doing the right thing, carrying on Aunt Lydia's work. But in the depths of space around Europa, hegemony ships were already moving to intercept them. The hunt was far from over, and the real test of Marcus's resolve was yet to come. Elena Vasquez worked through the night, analyzing the data cores while Marcus and Zephyr waited in her laboratory. The information was even more damaging than Captain Webb had suggested. Video footage showed hegemony forces using banned chemical weapons against civilian populations on the rim worlds. Financial records revealed massive corruption within the colonial Senate. Communication logs documented systematic cover-ups of atrocities committed in the name of human expansion. This is enough to bring down the current government, Elena said as dawn light began filtering through the laboratory windows. But we need to get it to multiple news outlets simultaneously. If the hegemony gets wind of the story before it breaks, they'll find ways to discredit or suppress it. Marcus had barely slept, but adrenaline kept him alert. How do we do that? The network has contacts throughout the galaxy, independent journalists, free colony leaders, even sympathizers within hegemony space. But we need time to coordinate the release, and time is something we don't have. As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout Europa Station. A calm voice spoke over the intercom. All personnel report to designated safety stations. Unidentified vessels are approaching the station. Through the laboratory window, Marcus could see ships emerging from hyperspace, sleek hegemony vessels surrounding Europa Station like predators circling prey. Many angry humans coming, Zephyr warned. Feel their determination. Very dangerous. They found us, Marcus said. Elena was already moving, transferring the data to multiple storage devices. Not necessarily. Europa is a neutral research station. They can't just attack without justification. The station's communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. Europa Station, this is Admiral Morrison of the Hegemony Navy. We are pursuing a stolen vessel carrying contraband materials. Surrender the ship Wandering Star and its crew immediately. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They had followed him here, and now innocent researchers on Europa Station were caught in the middle. I have to go, he said. I can't let them hurt people because of me. Elena grabbed his arm. Wait, there might be another way. She activated her personal communicator and sent a coded message. I'm contacting other network cells. If we're going to make our stand, this is the time to do it. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Ships began emerging from hyperspace around Europa Station, not hegemony vessels, but independent traders, miners, explorers, and even former hegemony defectors. Word had spread through the network's hidden communication channels, and captains were converging from across the solar system. Captain Webb's ship, the Free Spirit, was among the first to arrive. Her voice came over the general communication channel. Admiral Morrison, you are in violation of Europa's neutral status. Withdraw your forces immediately. Captain Webb, Admiral Morrison's voice was cold with recognition. I should have known you would be involved in this terrorist activity. Terrorist activity? Webb laughed. We're journalists and truth-tellers. You're the ones threatening a peaceful research station. More ships continued to arrive. Marcus watched in amazement as the space around Europa filled with vessels of every description. Mining ships, cargo haulers, exploration vessels, passenger liners, all flying the colors of independent colonies or no flags at all. Feel their courage, Zephyr communicated, her mental voice filled with wonder. So many brave humans choosing freedom. Elena had been working frantically at her communication console. It's ready, she announced. The story is prepared for simultaneous release across 47 independent news networks throughout human space. All I need to do is send the activation code. Do it, Marcus said. Elena's finger hovered over the control. Once this goes out, there's no taking it back. The hegemony will never stop hunting everyone involved. They're already hunting us, Marcus pointed out. At least this way, people will know why. Elena pressed the button. Across the galaxy, news feeds suddenly carried the same headline. Hegemony war crimes exposed. Evidence of systematic atrocities against civilian populations. The data core's contents were broadcast simultaneously on dozens of worlds, too many for the hegemony to suppress all at once. Admiral Morrison's response was immediate and predictable. All ships open fire on the terrorist vessel. But the hegemony ships found themselves vastly outnumbered. For every military vessel, there were 3 or 4 independent ships, and the captains of those ships had decided they'd had enough of hegemony intimidation. The battle that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined. Instead of the clean, orderly conflicts shown in entertainment programs, this was chaotic and desperate. Ships of all sizes maneuvered around Europa Station, using the moon's gravity wells and ice formations for cover. Marcus watched from the laboratory as the Wandering Star, his ship now, was defended by vessels whose captains had never met him but believed in what he represented. A small mining ship called Prometheus positioned itself between the Wandering Star and a hegemony cruiser, taking devastating fire to protect the larger vessel. The captain of an exploration ship named New Horizons rammed his vessel into a hegemony destroyer rather than let it reach Europa Station. "Brave humans," Zephyr communicated, and Marcus could feel her amazement at the courage being displayed, fighting for freedom like ancient Kythera. But the battle was taking a terrible toll. Independent ships were tough and their crews were experienced, but they weren't built for military combat. Marcus watched in horror as ships he had come to think of as allies were disabled or destroyed by hegemony weapons. "I have to get out there," he said. "They're dying because of me." Elena looked up from her console, where she was monitoring news feeds from across the galaxy. "You can't help them by getting yourself killed. Besides, look at this." The news feeds were showing something unprecedented. Protests erupting on hegemony worlds as citizens learned the truth about their government's actions. On Mars, dock workers were refusing to load military transports. On Titan, colonial militias were declaring independence from hegemony rule. Even on Earth, crowds were gathering outside government buildings demanding answers. "The story is spreading faster than the hegemony can contain it," Elena said. "This is what your aunt worked for. This is why she collected all that evidence." Through the laboratory window, Marcus could see that the tide of battle was beginning to turn. More ships were arriving every hour, some from as far away as the Alpha Centauri colonies. The network had revealed itself to be far larger and more organized than anyone had suspected. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication channels one more time. "All hegemony vessels, withdraw to minimum safe distance. We will regroup and return with reinforcements." The hegemony fleet pulled back, but they didn't leave entirely. They formed a blockade around Europa Station, trapping the independent ships inside. Captain Webb's voice came over Marcus's personal communicator. "Kid, we need to talk. Meet me in the station's conference center." The conference center was packed with captains from the various ships that had responded to the network's call. Marcus recognized Captain Webb immediately, but the others were strangers, men and women of all ages and backgrounds, united only by their belief in freedom and independence. "The hegemony will be back," Webb said without preamble. "They can't let this stand. If we stay here, they'll bring enough firepower to destroy the entire station." An older man with a cybernetic arm spoke up. "Then we scatter. Make them chase us across the galaxy instead of concentrating their forces." "That won't work," said a woman Marcus didn't recognize. "They'll hunt us down one by one. We need a permanent solution." Marcus found himself standing up before he realized he was going to speak. "There is another option." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. "Zephyr has been teaching me about the old Kythera trade routes, hyperspace paths that don't show up on any human charts. There are entire regions of space that the hegemony has never explored, systems where independent colonies could be established beyond their reach. Tell them about the safe worlds," Zephyr encouraged, "places where freedom can grow. My Kythera companion has memories of star systems with habitable worlds, resource-rich asteroids, even abandoned Kythera facilities that could be restored. We could establish a true independent network, not just individual ships running and hiding, but entire worlds where people could live free from hegemony control." The captains looked at each other, and Marcus could see hope beginning to replace desperation in their expressions. Captain Webb smiled. "A new frontier. I like it." But it would mean leaving everything behind, starting over in uncharted space. "We're already leaving everything behind," the woman pointed out. "At least this way, we'd be building something instead of just running." Over the next few hours, the plan took shape. The network would split into multiple groups, each following different Kthera trade routes to unexplored regions of the galaxy. They would establish colonies, trading posts, and safe havens for refugees from hegemony oppression. Most importantly, they would stay in contact through the hidden hyperspace routes that only bonded Kthera could navigate. As the meeting concluded, Elena approached Marcus with a smile. "Your aunt would be proud. This is bigger than anything she could have imagined." "She started it," Marcus said. "I'm just carrying on her work." "New beginning," Zephyr communicated, her mental voice warm with contentment. Adventure and freedom among the stars. The exodus from Europa Station began immediately. Ships departed in small groups, each following different routes to avoid hegemony detection. The Wandering Star was part of the last group to leave, carrying not just Marcus and Zephyr, but also Elena and a small team of volunteers who would help establish communication networks in the new territories. As they entered hyperspace, following ancient Kthera paths toward distant stars, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. A week ago, he had been a simple accountant. Now he was the captain of a starship, bonded to an alien navigator, and helping to establish a new frontier of human freedom. The first world they discovered was a blue-green planet orbiting a young star, with vast continents and clear oceans. The preliminary scans showed no intelligent life, but abundant resources and a stable ecosystem. "What should we call it?" Elena asked as they entered orbit. Marcus looked at Zephyr, who was purring contentedly in her navigation seat. "New home," she suggested. "Place where different species work together." "Harmony," Marcus said. "We'll call it Harmony." As they began the process of establishing the first independent colony beyond hegemony reach, Marcus received a communication from Captain Webb. Her group had found a system rich in asteroids that would be perfect for mining operations. Other groups were reporting similar successes: habitable moons, energy-rich gas giants, systems with rare minerals that could support thriving trade networks. The network was becoming something new, not just a resistance movement, but a true alternative to the hegemony's authoritarian expansion. And at the center of it all were the Kthera, using their ancient knowledge to guide humanity toward a better future among the stars. Months later, as Marcus stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching the first permanent settlements take shape on the planet below, he thought about his Aunt Lydia. She had spent her life fighting for freedom, one small act at a time, never knowing that her efforts would eventually spark a movement that would change the course of human expansion. "She knew," Zephyr assured him, settling comfortably on his shoulder. Kthera feel the flow of time differently. She knew her choices would matter. Below them, ships from across the galaxy were arriving daily, carrying refugees from hegemony oppression and pioneers seeking new opportunities. The network had grown from a few dozen ships to thousands, establishing colonies on dozens of worlds. The hegemony still controlled most of human space, but they could no longer claim to speak for all of humanity. There was an alternative now, a place where different species could work together as equals, where freedom and exploration mattered more than power and control. Marcus smiled as he watched a group of human children playing with young Kthera in the station's gardens. The future belonged to cooperation, not domination. "Good future," Zephyr agreed, her purr harmonizing with the hum of the station's life support systems. Much adventure still to come. Outside the windows, the stars beckoned with infinite possibility, and the Wandering Star waited in its docking bay, ready for whatever new adventures lay ahead. Marcus Chen, former accountant and current captain, had found his place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.